Okay, so this was a 10-minute talk that I kind of condensed into a 5-minute talk, but I'll expand the rest of it in the demo. Yeah, sort of an ad hoc demo, but hopefully it can also be a conversation piece to talk about access. So my name is Susan Losbury. I am the recent digital archivist at the New York Public Library, but I've been there for quite some time, just moved up into that position. So I'm here to talk about the Gay Men's Health Crisis Records, which was the first AIDS service organization founded in 1982 in New York City. If anyone saw the HBO's A Normal Heart, that was the AIDS organization that Larry Kramer wrote about in that play. They donated the records to the Manuscripts and Archives Division via multiple sessions from 1993 to 2000. And it contained paper records, sound and video recordings, and electronic records. The paper records were processed in 2007. Sound and video recordings were processed in 2008, and electronic records were in 2013. I've been at NYC long enough that I was involved in all formats, and Don Menerick as well when he was our AV archivist. So during processing, there were 73 floppy disks removed. They were definitely in the floppy disks and folders and binders. We didn't really have any sort of dedicated electronic records that were given to us. All disks were imaged on Hieroflex and processed using Forensics Toolkit. So here's a super basic description of our workflow. So after imaging, they were processed in FDK. I was a processing archivist on this project. So I bundled records into ER components, which are bundles of files that I created. And then the executables are served as disk images, and they're also described in the container list as so. And then they're served via our reading room terminal. And then we also put the disk through midday extraction, we photograph them, and then preservation. So the reading room terminal, we serve both the electronic records through QuickView Plus, and then we have various emulators for the disk images. So I'm here to talk about the hotline, which was the database that is of interest to me. It was staffed by counselors who provide support to people with AIDS, including answering their questions and directing them to services. It theoretically contains information regarding doctors, social services, and businesses that supported or served people with AIDS, which was a big deal in the mid-'80s when it was hard to find a funeral home that would accept a body of someone who died of AIDS. There are 3 disks containing files for the database, and we found out that it was Clarion by a header and the hexadecimal notation. On their own, none of the disk images would run in the emulator because the directory was broken. So we actually described it in the finding aid and then rebuilt it using the files, remove the disk images. So you can see here, this is what we built. There's the hotline executable, and then there's all the files, the DAT files, which contain data, and then the structural files. You can see the modification date has changed for the folder, because that's what we made for it, and then also the dump file. And then it could run in DOSBox, and I could do the full emulation in the demo for anyone who's interested in that. What we found with this is that we really hoped it would be the full hotline that was used, but it turned out it was just a demo model. But it was shown at the San Francisco AIDS conference in 1989, and they did use it for some data entry, so it actually did have some content, just not the content we had hoped to find, which is probably more a feeling that researchers feel, where they don't find what they want in a collection than archivists. But because I've worked on this project for so long, I had expectations. So we were successful in emulating it, and now we can add Clarion to our preferred list of file formats and languages that we can process, which is great, but also, I guess, just failure in sort of mitigating expectations of an archivist. And also revising archival description to reflect new discoveries. When I wrote the finding aid, we assumed it was a hotline, so we just put that because we're kind of doing MPLP and trying to push material out. So I have to go back and edit that. And one thing that our curators have asked for and researchers is to convert the DAT files into data sets so that they can be manipulated and used by researchers, which is sort of something that, as a digital archivist, you don't think of, because we just want to have it as it actually was. But this is another way to sort of encourage interactivity. So in the demo portion, I can talk about our public access model and how we serve records in the meeting room, as well as show some of the emulators. And I'd love to talk about other people's experiences serving electronic records, because I know it's sort of a new frontier.
Thank you very much.